Okay, so what I want to move on to today, the technical talk, we had somebody who was going to present today, and they kind of decided that they weren't going to present uh, uh, kind of this morning. So we're going to just go ahead and talk about Rivershared, and this will lead into Brad Fairley is going to be trying to get together a group of people to have a Zoom call. It'll probably be about an hour or so, just listing out where places that we could go as Rivershared in the future. Right now, Rivershared is a 501(c) nonprofit, but it really came out of this idea of how can we raise up an industry. And this is kind of a presentation that we put together years ago, and the idea is the thought that the industry of river restoration is kind of in its teenage years. We're not in the elementary years anymore. That was back in the 50s, 60s, but we're definitely not in the senior years. We haven't really arrived, if you would ever arrive. So we're kind of in these teenage years, these kind of awkward years, trying to figure out where things are going. And I would even argue that probably during the time that we started these things, we were more in the teenage years because we had more of those Rosgan wars and other things going on at the time where in the industry they were kind of going back and forth. But I compared it to, we compared this to raising a teenager. And the idea is when you're raising a teenager, how do you wish you were raised, or how do you try to raise your teenager? I remember when I was 17, I was kind of the smartest kid in the world. So it was kind of hard for somebody to tell me what to do because I already knew what to do. But the way that I learned from people is when they were able to share and show love towards me by being an example. And they allowed me to have decisions. And then they listened to concerns that I had as they came up. And those are things that I kind of want to focus Rivershared as being. Now, how we do that and what the content of Rivershared is can be all over the place. And I don't really know where that's going to go. And that's what I'm hoping that as a group, we start to come together and say, what's the most important things that we want to say, hey, we want to start here. And then we can grow out, and these are some other things we can move to in the future. But this is what we want to focus on, being able to help others, love others in the industry by doing. So we started out with this idea of a design philosophy years ago, and it was all related to river restoration and the good design philosophy. But we kind of changed it to this idea of how do we really look at who we are as a design community, opposed to just saying this is how we do design. Who are we as a design community? And we said, okay, well, can we be focused on sharing information and knowledge? So we said share knowledge with humility. So instead of being bragging about how good we are or how smart we are or telling people about our trade secrets, we've all learned this stuff because other people were humble enough to share what they knew with us in the past. So continue to share with humility, have patience and discernment for innovation. So as innovation shows up, don't jump on it and say, hey, this is going to fix everything, but have value in the methods of the past so that we can have patience as new methods develop and we don't kind of jump down and lose institutional knowledge, if you will, on how techniques are done or how we can collect data. Then advocate for excellence. We've really done this a lot through things like multi-criteria decisional analysis tools. And that's because I used to be very black and white on what excellence looked like. If you didn't do a certain method of river restoration, I would assume that wasn't excellent. Whereas now what I would say is it's less about the method of river restoration than it is meeting your goals and objectives with your stakeholders and finding the method that's appropriate to meet those goals and objectives. So I know Stantec is doing some design on headwater streams down in Texas right now, which doesn't look like the standard single thread channel Rosgan design, but it's meeting the goals and objectives of their clients. And so it's a slightly different way of looking at excellence because you're defining it by your clients. I think that's important. Respect the river and uncertainty in river systems. So we really want to focus on the fact that rivers are always going to have an uncertainty associated with them. And we've emphasized that just on the idea of pushing the idea of a bankful high and a bankful low. If we can't even exactly identify where bankful is at, then there's an inherent uncertainty associated with these river systems because we don't know bankful. We know where it's not a lot of times, but we don't always know where bankful is. And that can be somewhat concerning at times, but it can also be freeing when you realize that it's okay to have uncertainty about paying for. And then allow people to empower, challenge, and question every aspect of the work that we do. And this is really just everybody, anybody we come in contact with. Position ourselves so that people can feel like they can challenge and question what's being done. I don't know if Josh Allen's on the line, but you can see Josh Allen holding that survey rod there. That's a great picture. Document and learn from unexpected results. So as we mess up things, and we will mess up things. I mean, if you haven't messed up a stream ecosystem restoration project yet, then you probably haven't done that many. But that doesn't mean we can't fix them, and that doesn't mean we leave them messed up. It just means that we have things that don't always work the way we hope they worked. And so the whole idea is we're trying to create this revolution of sharing with others in this community to break down some of the walls of competition, to break down some of the walls of comparison, and to create a forum, a way to share information, to ask for help, to build a community, to provide a cooperative value to the community, and to build trust in the community. And then that community and the industry will develop relationships. As they develop, we'll have industry standards that come out of relationships because people will want to be able to do a task quicker or more efficient. And then they can improve resources, strengthen community and industry, and then just keep on sharing with others. So this is all what we've presented in the past. So this is not saying this is where we have to go in the future, but I give it as a background to open up a discussion for the next 10, 15 minutes on what are some things that could be important in the future. And then at the end of this time, if you want to continue on then to discuss this, then we'll kind of continue on a longer Zoom call at a later time to discuss this. So with that said, this is where this Rivershared idea is right now. Does anybody have some things that they'd really like to add to or take away from kind of the Rivershared ideas as we're trying to create some sort of a path forward to where we go with Rivershared now that we're nonprofit? Where is it that people want to go, if you will, for this?
This is Josh. Can you hear me?
We've seen so far that with Rivershared, we have, we've hired interns, we've trained interns, and a number of the interns are on the line. And then we help develop relationships with the industry and a place for them to go work in the future. And that's one of the tasks that we've done. We've gotten to the point where we've shared information and knowledge and just be at a place where people can say, hey, how do you do this? And different philosophies. And then we have, these Monday morning calls that we're trying to share information and knowledge as well as give encouragement at the beginning of the week. So that's kind of where we've been so far. We've had thoughts about a number of other things related to cooperative sharing of software, cooperative sharing of equipment, and also ideas of alternatives to formalized educational processes. So those are some thoughts where we've been thinking in the past, but we don't know where we want to go next in the industry.
Thanks, Dave. It's Brad. Yeah, guys, basically, I mean, I've got lots of ideas in terms of where I'd like to take it, but I am interested in your input. Dave's highlighted some of the things that I think Rivershared has done well, perhaps not with necessarily a Rivershared stamp all over it, but certainly that's the philosophy behind some of those things. But, I mean, we've got a website, or could we be using it more effectively? Could we be doing some more training than beyond the sort of the intern approach? Dave's talked about sort of information sharing. I mean, I organized an event here in Canada and had a bunch of speakers come up from the US. Do we want to be doing some small research projects? Obviously there's some things that I'd like to see done here in Canada that are pretty lacking. And Dave and I have talked about some research on this, basically the issue of precip driving regional curves, not necessarily the the geography of the area. So I'm just curious in terms of where do you think Rivershared could help? What could it do? As I mentioned on a previous call, I'd really like to zero in on the things that we could do well in the short run to have an impact, to generate momentum, to get further interest. So and now I'll stop talking again in the hopes that someone else will dive in. So.
This is Josh. Can you guys hear me?
Was somebody talking there? I thought I heard somebody really quiet.
Yeah, this is Josh Gilman. Can you hear me?
Barely, Josh. Can you speak up? Josh, we can't hear you.
Well, he'll come back on if he figures out what's wrong with his
Okay.
his mic or something. So.
Okay.
Anybody else got any other ideas?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Dave, for sharing this morning. That was right on target. And I think, Brad, that's a good, I think it's good. What your all those ideas you brought up are really good ideas. I feel like one of the big things with Rivershared is advocacy. And, we talked this morning about competition and metrics of success. And I think it sounds to me, and I don't want to place words in other people, if we focus our competition being
Josh, you've gone quiet again. Josh, I can barely hear you again.
We're the best stream designers, or you're the best stream designers, or we're making more money, or they're making more money. But the competition, or the contest rather, is what's the best avenue to get good stewardship to happen. And for myself, I personally, my goals are set to embrace the ministry of stewardship, whether it's with clients, with coworkers, at either end of the spectrum. And Rivershared seems to have that same concept of shared stewardship. So if that's being the goal, if the competition is how can we best get more people to be better stewards and reach out, and advocacy, I feel like advocacy is probably where there's a lot of traction there. And I don't know what kind of project might come out of that. I think doing projects and stuff, that's all fun. That just gets us to spend time together doing what we love to do, or talking or sharing and conferencing. But I feel like if the objective is if the contest is to get more streams fixed in a shorter amount of time and get people to maybe not break streams, then maybe advocacy is what I think would be a good focus.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the advocacy is kind of one of the most important aspects of the group.
Any ideas on how to do it, Josh?
I think part of advocacy might just be kind of, the idea that as we're focused on sharing in the industry, just get another new people focused on sharing as they're in communication relationship with us. It's hard to be an advocate without being an example.
Hey, Dave, can you hear me? This is Mike.
You can, Mike. Yeah.
I think one thing that this is from having seen the way that people are doing things all across the U.S. I think that one thing we should be doing as a profession is everything we do, advocating on behalf of the resource, putting the resource first in everything we do, rather than putting a certain design philosophy or certain company or whatever. I think if we come at everything as though we're working on behalf of the resource. I think that is probably the best way to unify our profession over a broad spectrum of interests and specialties and desires and goals and objectives and all that jazz for everything we're doing.
Again, the same question to you, Mike, is how do we do it? I guess, I mean, I think that's great, but I mean, that's a job that will never be done. And I realize even jobs that will never be done, you need to start somewhere, but where do we start with that? I mean, it's not, you know, it's similar to what Josh has said in terms of stewardship and stuff, but I mean, how do we make that happen?
I think it can start with, I mean, I think a lot of us on here do presentations at conferences. We talk to people in the community and we just couch our message as coming from on behalf of the resource, working on behalf of what we're trying to restore or mend or improve. I think that's a good way to start, you know.
So a lot of it, Mike, is kind of taken a little bit more humble approach to what our association is with, whether it's with a company, whether it's this, and just kind of keeping the focus on the resource more than kind of, hey, look how awesome I am or whatever. Is that kind of what you're saying? Or
I think so. I think that's part of it. I just think that when we're out in the field looking at a site with clients and regulators and partners, if it's just kind of the language that we use, I think is important. I think it matters, and I think that if we're always coming from perspective of how can we best help the resource, what the river's doing the work, right? The processes are, all the river is an expression of all these processes, right? It's how water and sediment and wood and all that jazz moves across the landscape. And I think if we kind of decentralize or I'm having a hard time putting this in the
well, you're trying to shift the emphasis.
Yeah. I think that's all part of it, right? I mean, it's not just getting to the end of this project. And maybe it's going to take baby steps along the way, I think. Kind of nudging people and nudging clients and nudging the restoration community in that direction I'm in it for the resource. I think we're all in it for the resource. And I think that's, I think too many people look at this as a business and
right,
and not look at it as an opportunity.
Those are good ideas. I guess my question is, does the idea about doing research or sharing information on the website or doing training or posting presentations of videos on the website, I mean, does it preclude that? Do all of those things help us achieve that?
I think all those things would.
Okay, I'm trying to find concrete things that we can really do other than, trying to help the world get a better attitude. I mean, that's pretty hard to, like I said, that's never ending.
I think I'm advocating, Brad, for a shift in the language that we use. And if we constantly reinforce this idea, just like the whole Rivershared thing it's a great idea. It's an ethos. We're trying to shift the thinking of people to look at rivers in a certain way and value the sharing of information. And it's the same kind of thing. It's in the language that we use. There's people in this group that touch and interact with a lot of other people. And I think it just starts there. I'm not proposing to save the world here. I'm just offering up one suggestion I think would play a part in kind of shifting that mentality of a lot of people that at least I run into in the field that are sort of myopically focused on a project without thinking about the resource in a broader context.
Okay, no, I get it, but so that doesn't preclude doing those other things. You're just saying that that's an important component of it, provides a framework for it.
Absolutely, yeah. I just think it becomes part of it. It's part of all of it.
I almost think of, sometimes part of advocacy towards that resource ethic is also creating uh, options for ways of people to communicate uh, in something that's focused on the resource opposed to focused on um, sins of this world related to competition comparison, how that business is going to do compared to this business, to show how good I am or whatever. So, I wonder if even I think of a lot of people that work in a business where they may be the only person doing river restoration, to even create um, a means of communication that's an example of that people can kind of use and get to. So, if we create documents, let's make sure that we focus all of our documents with the resource being the focus on it, and with a sense of us being a steward of that resource or that gift that we have in that resource, opposed to having the focus be kind of a industrial white paper, if you will, that has the advertisement of somebody else on it.
Yeah, the last thing I want is for some corporation to start spewing this stuff and they don't even mean it.
Yeah.
It becomes a tagline.
Yeah, it becomes a tagline. It's like, hey, look,
I'm
do
loving
this.
it.
We do this.
Working. Did you guys hear anything the first go around? Did that? I think there was another Bluetooth in my house picking up my audio. Yeah, but I don't know if
we heard you, Josh. You sounded like a transformer of sorts. But tough.
My point was for me. We talked about success and stuff, and I think several years ago for me, I had been used to trying to achieve goals that I thought other people wanted me to achieve, that I thought other people would think would be good, that were world-centric. And when I put those aside and set my goals elsewhere, primarily focusing on stewardship and the ministry of stewardship and trying to teach and share and learn from people who are either, working with me, alongside me, young people, older people, or clients. And I particularly thrive or enjoy working with clients who a lot of this is new to them. Mike said, or Brad said, it's how we speak about it and how we do it, and making those connections. And like any other ministry, it requires baby steps and starts with trust and then common success and then common failure together, do something that works and something that doesn't work together, and then embrace that and move through it. But as consultants, we sometimes try to put the consultant hat on first, when for myself, a smart friend of mine once said, consulting is just the vessel for me to do this work. And it's important, we work for a company and we have to make money, and that whole operation's really important. But because without that vessel, we don't have this platform for ministry of stewardship. And so I think what I was trying to feedback to Brad was I think advocacy is the biggest thing. And it might seem like a big daunting task, but advocacy, if one person tells 10 people and those 10 people tell 10 people, so getting all people from different sectors, from different sides of the aisle and from all over to understand that this stewardship, like Mike said, is not our work. It's the work of the river. We're just helping it get there. I think that helps for me.
And I think those ideas are all good. They seem to be things that one does. We may do them collectively as a group, but we do them individually. Are there things more? It's going to be very difficult to measure results, to
Succeed.
Show how we're making and having an effect. So I guess I'm looking for something perhaps a little bit further down the ladder that's more measurable, more concrete.
Dave used to run a slide and then he got me excited about running a slide at the end of presentations that talks about Rivershared. And I think, maybe a repository for, one idea I had last week when I wanted to share with you was a repository for different types of presentations, maybe recorded or non-recorded, where people could see ideas, and then you could have author information. So somebody says, "Oh, Dave did a discussion on fish passage in Idaho. I'm interested about that. How'd that work out? Maybe his presentation just talks about it, or and that. So posting in it, maybe at the end of presentations we say, hey, by the way, you can get this on Rivershared. And if everybody says, by the way, you can find this on Rivershared. Incidentally, Rivershared is this, consortium of, this is what it is. You know what I mean? So you get the advocacy, and then rather than creating a new thing, you just take the work we're already doing and keep it somewhere. But I don't know if that's a good idea or not.
Josh, I think it's a really good idea, because I think it's something that we can really do right now. We have the website, we can store material. I think it could be an excellent resource for people to go to get information and for contacts. I mean, so, now one of the is that a lot of conferences, or, if it's a publication, you can't publish it somewhere else. So there's some limitations potentially on that. I guess the question would be is how would you folks feel about putting name and contact information up as members of Rivershared if someone wanted to contact you and ask you for information or thoughts or guidance or wisdom or connections seem to be an important part of this, but there's a lot of names and phone numbers across the top of my screen, but does somebody want to allow that to be made available? I mean, I think the idea of presentations is a really good one, Josh, and that's something, I think the website is probably the most underused thing that we have right now that we could have an effect fairly quickly, especially if we did start to tag Rivershared onto the tail end of our presentations, saying, if you want to go see it, it's posted here, and here's my name and contact information.
Yeah, and people don't have to have their contact information either.
No, they don't. I'm asking, Josh.
Yeah, no, I like it. Well, if we have bandwidth, if we have the cloud support, whatever the service that would require, to do that, I don't know how much it costs to maintain that website, and if you would have to upgrade it to make it, because the worst thing would be to try to put stuff up there and then have a difficult time accessing it, But yeah, the networking and the advocacy is, I think, is primary importance. Everybody needs to just keep doing what we're doing, but just tell more people about it.
Hey, Brad, this is
website.
Matt Stallman.
Yes, Matt.
Hey, Dave. I got to jump off in about 1 minute, but I just wanted to leave you with this thought. I think one of the most important things for Rivershared as far as practical implementation is staying connected with those students, taking those students from their transition from the university environment into the professional world, wherever they end up, whatever organization they end up working with. And I think if the focus is on, and it has been quite a bit, on developing relationships with those students and helping connect those students with the broader network that Rivershared has in place, as well as sharing the technical knowledge, which you guys are great at doing that already. I think you will see Rivershared continue to grow as an organization as more and more students get out into the workforce and start their own, their own professional practices and whatnot. So if you're looking, Brad, if you're looking for, practical implementation advice, I would recommend securing relationships with particular professors in particular programs, particular universities, and working directly with students and student-led organizations. So that's just my advice.
Thank you.
Glad you guys are doing this. You guys are doing a great job, and I look forward to seeing where Rivershared's going. Y'all take care. Have a great week.
Thanks.
Thanks, man.
Anyone else have any other thoughts? These are all good ideas. I you know, it's got lots of different ideas out there, so I am keen.
Yeah, Brad, this is Philip Todd. I had one question for y'all on where you want to go with the organization. How do you want to tie in to, or do you want to tie in to stream restoration policy and being a feedback loop for that, and also with construction practices?
Those are good questions, and when we came across the word advocacy, it made me a little bit uneasy, Philip, because it's like, you know, different members of Rivershared might have different views on certain things. So while I think we can get our heads around putting the resource first, I think it may be more difficult for us collectively to comment on, you know, new core guidance or the waters of the U.S. or the things that change in our world. I mean, they're very important, but you know, I don't know whether we can get any. It's a good question. I don't know.
When I indicated advocacy, Brad, I meant just advocating ministry of good stewardship.
No, I understand.
Not so much. Yeah, getting into political advocacy. Yeah. Okay.
No, but again, it begs the question. So where does that? I mean, I think the idea about advocating for putting the resource first is good. I think, you know, I guess the other question, Philip, is, I mean, are there other agencies that are doing that? I mean, I know the mitigation bankers are all over a lot of the policy discussions and stuff. So I'm trying to carve out a niche where there's not an agency doing it right now, because certainly there's lots of work that needs to be done, and we don't need to be piling on things that are someone else is already doing and potentially doing well. I'm just throwing that out.
Well, I guess where I was going with it is that.
Go ahead, Philip.
Go ahead, Dave.
I've always had a desire to kind of have Rivershared have more of a construction focus and get folks that are involved in construction more involved and help them build relationships as well. And we've shared knowledge that way, but we haven't really helped with building of relationships like we have with the student program and things. And I think there's a lot of potential for growth there. And the competition in construction is so high. I mean, really, compared to competition in engineering, construction is even higher. So I think that there's definitely a role there. It might be a scarier role to move forward with, but I think there's definitely a neat opportunity there.
Philip, can we go back? Dave's suggesting that working with the contractors is a good place to be. When you said policy stuff, what did you mean, Philip?
I guess what I was saying was, I mean, you're correct. I mean, you have IRBA, you have NEBA, you have all these mitigation groups that are out there, but I'm not sure, and Matt Strongman may take a different approach than Matt. Sometimes I'm not sure they have the goes back to what Mike Adams said earlier, have the resource and best interest. And so I guess where I was asking the question was, does Rivershared need to, one of the things need to exist for is to provide a feedback to regulators in terms of what are great standard practices for stream restoration, so that they can have an influence on having those policies updated to reflect what those greater and new policies are, best practices are.
What's available right now along that line, Philip? Is there anything in terms of best practices for construction?
No, I was thinking just for stream policy, stream restoration policy. Okay. That's where I was going with that. Mainly, there's a two-part question. One was advocacy for better stream restoration policy, and the second one was separate, influence construction and having that feedback, I guess, to designs as well, to make a better product in the end, look after the resource itself.
Yeah, those are all, again, some of the things that I'm trying to find is an angle for us where, we don't have a huge amount of time. We don't have a huge amount of resources. I'm trying to find angles where we can do things without it requiring, staff to do it and time significant amounts of time. So, because we've all got a job as well.
It's important to me. I really want something that we can be focused on sharing and caring with others, but not to kind of create a new empire or to create a new bureaucracy or create something that's going to be really time consuming. So we're kind of looking at the things that, what is it that we can, what's really, how will the industry feel love from this group, if you will? So if we're sharing information, we want to be resource focused. We want to be a stewardship, but also how is it that other people will see that we're sharing this information and find value in that? So, to put information out there that nobody ever uses, I don't think anybody's interested in doing that if people can't find value in it. So later in the week, on Thursday or Friday, we're going to get together a phone call. We'll send out a doodle poll, and from this phone call, Josh, do you want to receive the doodle poll to be on the phone call?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Mike Adams, are you willing to do that as well?
Yeah.
And then Eve Brantley will be on the phone call. She had just sent me a text message. We'll see. We'll invite Matt Stallman as well. And then Philip, would you like to be on that phone call? Would you have time if it works into your schedule?
Sure. Yeah,
Good.
I can write some time.
And then
Yeah, Philip, because
I
I'd
think
like
we'll
to.
have Josh Allen as well. So
Philip, I'd like to talk to you more about that. So I'd appreciate it if you'd be on the call.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
So right now that would just be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There'll be 8 of us on the call. And if there's somebody else that you're saying, hey, they really would like to be on this call, let us know and we'll invite them. We don't want to take a whole lot of time from people that don't want to be on there, but at the same point, we want to include folks that have something they want to add related to this. So Brad or I will send a doodle poll here today or tomorrow, or looking for a time on Thursday or Friday that would work. So.
Thanks everybody for your thoughts. I appreciate it. You've got me thinking already, so I'm glad I've got a few days before we do the call because I'll try to mull some. Probably talk to Dave and see if I can make some sense out of it. So thanks.
Hey guys, I really appreciate everybody being willing to kind of be on the call today. So
thanks for hosting, Dave.
Hey, who's the 410 number this morning?
That's me, Rich Berkey.
Oh, okay. I see Rich Berkey, but I saw another 410 number too, so I was wondering who the other number was.
I'm 2623842. I'm on the phone and on the computer.
Oh,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was confused. I was like, who's that? Good.
Yeah, the beauty is I can go for a walk with the dog in the beginning, and then when I need to see some slides, then I get on my computer.
That makes sense. So good. So it's nice to hear from you this morning, Rich.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I really appreciate it.
Good. Where's your where are you working at right now? Are you working in Colorado or where are you? I'm guessing you're in Colorado right now. Are you working at all? I guess is the question.
Yeah, I'm working doing some work for a company in Fort Collins. But spend most of my time in my basement right now.
Yeah,
but it's all good.
Good. All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys. Have a wonderful week. I'll stay on the line until everybody hangs up.